Hey, Organize, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. So I feel the need after Scott has just spoken to preface this question with that it's coming from a polytheistic and pluralistic perspective rather than an atheistic one. How would you go about accounting for the diversity of religious experience within Christianity alone even, but I mean more broadly across all religions because I have religious experiences with various deities. The majority of my friends do, and they're various different religions, and we generally tend to just accept that each other are having religious experiences with certain deities and that they exist. And so, how do you go about accounting for that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I love your accent. I don't know where it's from, but it's pretty cool. So I th I think that this goes a little bit what I said earlier in the last question, but I would distinguish between general revelation and special revelation. So I don't deny for a second that Mormons or Hindus or what have you have legitimate experiences that are extremely real. I don't say that that's delusory or anything like that. I would just question the interpretation. And I think that when you have mutually exclude, I think that the experience doesn't, and I get flack from Christians for saying this, but I don't think that the experience necessarily justifies you in all of the entailments of that belief. So if I'm born in a Christian home and I feel like I can feel the Holy Spirit, if that's all I had and I never interacted with any other religion, never knew there were any to fear, I think I would be warranted to believe that. But if I learn that, oh, there's other religions that have experiences too, and that's it, you would have to I think if you're going to be a pluralist, you have to say that each religion has certain aspects of God, right? But you can't affirm the complete and absolute truth of every religion because most of those religions, most people, I think if you add Christians and Muslims together, that's like 60% of the population. Most people are religious exclusivists; they're not inclusivists, and so you can't. It would be a contradiction to say that everything in Islam and Christianity is true and also religious pluralism is true because those directly deny that. So you would have to say that some of the certain tenets of those religions are false, right? So I think the question is just which tenets of which religions are false and which ones aren't. So in that case, we would have to look at defeaters. We would have to look at arguments about the specifics. I could say that yes, I think your experience was from God and God's trying to have a relationship with you. But in terms of what does God want, which God is it, we would have to have a conversation about that. But that's again where I would probably try to appeal to vindication miracles and stuff, which I did talk about in the last presentation, which is on YouTube that Matt posted. I think that's specifically revelation from God saying, this is the correct belief. This is my message that I'm giving to you. I'm putting my rubber stamp on it. That's a more specified message than the general idea we see of God wanting people to come to him and us putting our own spins on that. So I hope that was somewhat helpful or answered your question.
I mean, I guess it answers my question, but to summarize, is it basically just relabeling other people's religious experiences to fit into your paradigm?
Can you say that one more time? I don't know if I understood what you said.
So the way you would deal with other people's experiences in their religions is to just relabel them into your paradigm.
Well, no, because you don't know if your paradigm is correct. So it's not I'm starting with my paradigm and trying to make it fit. I'm saying because a lot of these paradigms are mutually exclusive, we're going to have to try to deduct which ones are correct and which ones are false. Again, that doesn't mean that your experience itself is false. It just might mean that your interpretation is incorrect. And that's all. And that's on me too. It's not just you. Like, theoretically, my Christian Allah could be real and I could be deceived, and maybe what I think is the Holy Spirit's Allah trying to reach out to me. That's possible. We would have to talk about the arguments and the evidence for that. But so you would have to do more of an evidentialist approach to that case and looking at which religion's more likely to be true and what are the arguments for it and all that stuff. So again, that would take a while to do because we don't have time to sit here and deduct every religion. But that's in theory how you would do it. I would say.
Okay, see, I quite commonly see a much simpler approach, which is simply the entities we are interacting with exist and are real, and then we can each internally deal with whatever tenets seem to us to fit, but we don't have to say other people have that because we experience it differently.
So are you saying that? I'm just trying to understand. Are you saying this is like a subjective kind of truth, or do you think they all objectively exist and we just experience one?
So I think that they all a massive variety of deities exist,
Uh-huh.
and I think that people can have relationships with deities, and they can have structures, especially around their rituals for them,
Mm-hmm.
and that each of those could individually be true without additional things around the religions having to be true.
Well, now correct me if I'm wrong, Caleb, but I mean the main conclusion of your presentation, the argument presenting today is not for a specific religion or even a specific framework, such as like pluralism versus non-pluralism. We'll say it's more just that there is a teleology behind the world, that there is a transcendent reality, and then how that's structured would be other arguments. Is that right, or were you trying to
Yeah.
claim more than just that?
Well, no, I am, and I don't think organized chaos would disagree with my present. Like what he's saying is perfectly consistent with my argument. I'm just this is a step two, is what I'm saying. Like what he was asking me is, okay, how do you go from there to looking at like why is there diversity in religious experiences? And I'm saying this as an exclusivist. That was my answer. So if we're going to okay, there's this experience that we might think is legitimate. How do we know which God it is, or if they're all legitimate? That's the next argument. We'd have to talk about that. But my presentation wasn't addressing that particular point. It was only saying that the plurality of religious experience is not a sufficient defeater for such experience in general. It's only a defeater for, or possibly a defeater for potential specific tenets of that religion. Um, so that's the general statement. But yeah, I guess to ask, or and I don't know if anyone, I don't see anyone else with their hand, so I don't want to. Scott might want to come up again if he wants. But when it comes to organized religion and stuff, I think that like if I think the Holy Spirit's telling me that Christianity is exclusively true, right? I I think that is mutually exclusive to something a pluralist would think. Now, I could be wrong on that. I'm not saying that, my experience trumps yours. And if your experience is telling you that pluralism is true, okay, we got two conflicting experiences here. And that's where we can't at that point just appeal to experience. Experience might tell us there's a God, but we'd have to go further than that to get to the specifics because it looks like God's telling us two different things. And so one of us probably isn't really hearing from God, right? And so we'd have to talk about who is right and all that. So that would be a separate set of arguments.
What do
Yeah,
you
pretty
make?
much. I largely agree with your presentation, and honestly, I tend to have a very similar argument when talking with atheists and often Christians because they'll go, "No, your experiences aren't real."
Yeah, that's wrong. I have no reason to think your experience isn't valid, and I don't like when Christians do that. I think that's just really naive. I don't know. It seems just to say that yes, it must be Satan or something. Like, come on. Maybe this is just the more optimistic person in me in terms of my view of salvation, but I do think God is trying to reach out to everyone. I don't think God is intentionally deceiving people with experiences, at least most of the time. So, yeah, I think we agree on that.
Thank you for listening. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. Please also look at the show notes in order to find a link to our group so that you can join our next discussion. I look forward to chatting with you.